All right, welcome back to week 36 of Aligning with Success. Dave, you were about to say something. We got the recording on. Go for it.
Well, I was just reading some information about organization, and it came across a quote that says, "A large organization is made up of groups. A small organization is made up of individuals."
Hmm.
And when I looked at that, I said, "Well, isn't that interesting? Because part of what we're trying to do is get people and consultants, distributors to create their teams, which is a group." And get larger, go from silver to gold to platinum to diamond, the usual rung. And the more they create teams, the larger they're going to get. So the focus is, and we've been talking about this, which is kind of interesting. And it brings in, right now the company with Jeff has got people focused on doing these daily activities, which is perfect. It's absolutely perfect. If we look at it, it's the ingredients of baking a cake. Same kind of concept. You make your calls, you do your follow-ups, you do your mindset, you do all of those, whatever you need to do to get prepared to play the game, to go out and build your business. But the key to the long-term success is to then create those teams, because it's the teams in their own selves and their own groups that expand the organization. You and I both know what it was like to have other Royal Diamonds, have Platinums, have had teams. We're doing events. I remember when we used to go to our Team Diamond events and all the sub events that were going on as part of it, the luncheons, the groups of leaders and the after parties and all those sort of things were what made it really go to town and go clickety click. So I just thought that was an interesting point. And the final thing in this for this thought was, it's really important to do those things that you're doing, but the next part of it is even more important. You want to relate your activity to the results, because this is where you become the master chef, or you're the sous chef. And the sous chef's the helper, and the master chef controls and runs the deal. And in doing activities, and again, this is one of the things that we talked about a few lessons back, and in doing the administrative scale, it's managing by statistics. If you don't manage by statistics, you'll emotions will get in the way, and you really won't, do what you need to do. So measure your activity, but also measure your results so that you can determine and see that the activities that what are the activities you're doing creating for you, and what aspect works and what doesn't. It takes time, and if you have any questions, by all means, let me know, because I've run all my businesses based on statistics, and they don't lie, and it tells you exactly what to do, and you were given the conditions to follow to make it real easy. So this is all part of this learning curve. Anyway, there you go.
I want to come back to this whole conversation about creating teams because that really is the crux of it. Last week, we left off um, with a series of three questions. I said that I was going to run an ABC call with my diamonds and Royal Diamonds in Latin America for the platinums. The diamonds and royal diamonds being the A's, the platinums being the B's, and the guests that they would bring on was a big success. We had 40 plus people on that call. We had four stories, one moderator. The questions the moderator asked were the same three questions of each of the speakers, and it was fantastic to see the way the speakers would light up, especially when they described that thing, that one thing of all the many things they've been able to do, the one thing that they were able to do as a result of the business that makes it worthwhile. It was just wonderful to see how they lit up when they shared that. Anyway, the feedback after the call is what are the results, what Dave's talking about. In other words, we can pat ourselves on the back and say, hey, good call. It sounded great. You guys were fantastic. But that's not what the call's about. It's an ABC call to recruit people into the business. And so the feedback came in 24 hours pretty quick. And it was unanimous that we need to continue with these calls. That's how well received the call was. And one of my gals, one of the top Royal Diamonds in Nikan, she wasn't able to be on that call. She had a conflict of schedule, but she sent a prospect to the call and then sent us a screenshot of the text message she received from that prospect at 8:55 p.m. would have been their time, would have been like right after the call ended, that she has so many questions and she was asking for when they could meet the following day. That's the kind of response you
That's
want
a
from a
good result.
prospect. That's a good result.
Yeah.
So we will continue with those calls, which, by the way, then suggests perhaps we ought to get a North American version of that going in English. And Dave, I'll talk to you more about that because it was just so simple, but really, really effective. But coming back to the idea of the business being a composition of teams, creating teams, large organizations are comprised of groups. Obviously, it starts with yours. And the idea is not for you to just be assimilated into a group. And part of the problem with having calls of this sort, as we do, at least this is once a week, but they're not a substitute for what gets the job done. I had a great conversation with Maggie today, sort of a brainstorm as well, and we were talking about what is it that's really, really important for this next chapter of Niken. We're closing a chapter this week in Niken, the last 50 years, and we're opening up a new chapter in Niken, which is the next 50 years. And you guys have been part of the last 50 years, but you've also been educated. You're not the body of Niken. You're a very select group of people within the context of Niken who've been educated on the higher aspirations of the business, on how to conduct yourself as though you were going to lead an army of people. And so a lot of what you've received is the fundamentals, the building blocks of what it takes to be a team leader, not just to be part of a team, but to actually be a team leader and to conduct yourself that way. So and that's really what the next chapter is going to be about. It's about the expansion of Niken into new markets. And we're not talking about new countries. We're talking about new markets. We have a 30-year-old demographic unhurt, untouched, a 40-year-old demographic untouched, 50-year-old demographic untouched, 60-year-old demographic. We know that the 60 plus year old demographic we've touched 1.25% of, not very much. So we have a huge opportunity to lead in this new market penetration. And so each of you to become leaders in your own right. And the conversation I was having with Maggie was really about what is an essential component to creating stickiness. Like momentum happens when you can get a number of people going, and then there's enough people, critical mass, where it starts to have a life of its own. At which point you really don't even have any control over it. You can just feed the fire, but you can't snuff it out. And so this component of critical mass requires a gathering. And it's got to be something that's a catalyst that causes this gathering to happen, to create excitement, to create the energy that is necessary for this to become a thing that people want to be a part of with regularity, not sparingly, not haphazardly. And when we transitioned in 2000 to a more online format, to 2021 to an online format, because live meetings were becoming unpopular, what we lost was the dynamic that's created in a live setting. What we lost was team leaders. And you all sort of became assimilated into whoever was leading the online agenda, which is really just a handful of people. You go on the calls, you know who does the talking. Any call you go on, it's the same old doing the talking. That is not expansion. That is not the definition of expansion. That's maintenance. Expansion means multiplication. There's more people doing whatever is being done. So if there's a Zoom call, there's more Zoom calls, not less, because there's more people doing them, leading their own Zoom calls. If there's meetings, there's more meetings happening because there's more people doing meetings. So whatever it is that we're doing needs to be growing, and you can look at this as everything has to be increasing in numbers. The number of people who are being contacted and invited to learn about Niken, the number of people who are being taken through the process, the number of people who are experiencing a Niken product demo, the number of people who are enrolling as a customer, the number of people who are enrolling as a consultant, the number of people who are advancing in rank to senior, the number of people who are advancing in rank to executive, etc. So if those numbers aren't increasing, we're maintaining. We've got to move out of maintenance and into growth. That's what this next chapter is all about. We've coasted into the 50-year anniversary, and now we got to turn the jets on to start to reach into the market, which means we've got to recapture those things that create teams, those things that create critical mass, that creates synergy and subsequently momentum. And therefore, you taking your rightful role as a leader in your own town. That's where it starts. It starts with where you are. Grow where you're planted. And so, the bigger the city, obviously, the more opportunity for multiple leaders. For instance, in Toronto, I don't know how many diamonds. I think we have 3 or 4 consultants of the year for all of Niken North America came out of the city of Toronto. 5, maybe. I don't know how many Royal Diamonds, but the point is, obviously, where there are city centers, there's opportunity for more leaders to be there. But each one of you have a place and a serve. You have an opportunity to serve and to create a chapter in your own neck of the woods so that you become synonymous with the leader in that area, at least at this moment in time. And then you will start forging your own team. So until you can identify as such, until you see yourself as that, instead of being a consumer of our aligning with success call, instead of being a consumer of the balanced life, happy life call, meaning you show up but you don't bring anybody, that's a consumer. If you're not leveraging these events, you're not multiplying. So maybe we need to step away from these events and you need to start your own so that now you're really on the hook for an event because it's your event. It's like you hosting a party. You better show up at your own party. And chances are pretty good you'll probably have some guests because it's your party. But if it's somebody else's party, you may or you may not show up. And if you're not going to show up, chances are you're not going to have a guest go to it. You see what I'm saying? So we've got to reverse the trend that we began in 2020. Dave.
Just with what you said about to Maggie, the there's in building anything, the first action of the organization has got to be PR, public relations. Advertising does not work without public relations first. So in other words, you can advertise your brains out, but if there's no awareness of what you're advertising, then it's a waste of time. So the advertising won't create results. However, if you PR ahead of marketing and advertising, then you create the buzz. So if, for example, when we look back at Niken in 1990, it had been in 8 countries. It had an Olympic team. It was known around the world for its technology. It did a lot of PR. To when it came to North America, there was all kinds of information that was, wow, this is incredible. If we look at social media, how did social media it started with PR? And if you look at what's going on right now, the big gurus, what are they doing? They're PRing and PRing, and they're making themselves known. They're making the idea safe. They're making the idea well respected. And then there's enough of a buzz to catch on. So when we got involved in 1990, the PR was already in the community. We just had to fan the fire with the billow to make sure that it got out there, and then it was supported and backed up with what was already done and proven, and it became an exciting thing, and it caught on like wildfire. So the combination of what we've talked about tonight is the team creates the PR for the recruiting of new members to the team. So if there's no team being structured and created by the team leader, then it's hard to PR the success of building an organization unless there's a forum that we do it. And maybe that's what this forum is going to become is the lead in that PR for the group to come and listen to what we do, what we talk about, and then change it just slightly to what's going on in the world, who's helping so and so. The PR of Nikon sending all those air filters to the whatever they did back in Mexico a number of years was great PR, and it put credibility to the company, but it safe pointed, the idea of what this company does and how it helped people, and that's see, people like to help. They like to be involved with people like to help. So it's the PR. So the PR machine goes out first, advertising follows, and marketing follows that. So if you're trying to build up an area, you go to an event in your community and you put on an event, you give away free water. And then you come back to that because the population in that area understands what you guys have the water. Okay, great. We'd like to know more. See, but it's the same thing when you're dealing with a new distributor and you're trying to sell them a waterfall and they have no idea the importance of water. They don't know they don't know what bad water is. They don't know what good water is. They've never been educated on it. It's like, credit. You weren't educated on credit in school. No one taught you anything. And the majority of the population is in debt up to their eyebrows with credit cards because they have no knowledge. This is how this whole game it works. So along what and look at what Michael's doing with that, the group in Mexico. Now putting out an event to get everybody going and get them excited. They bring on a guest. Okay, look what that guest got to look at, and then that guest got excited. So I think that's the next change or the next route for us is get this PR machine going.
Okay, I really like that, Dave. Maybe, in fact, this call would be really an excellent call if maybe the first half of the call was strictly that.
Yeah,
That way we could utilize it to invite guests to
yeah,
see. So maybe you and I can have a conversation about what we could do to structure that first half of the call so it's a PR call.
yeah.
That means anybody who you bring to this call will get a look at what's going on, and they'll get to see the inside of Niken, but they'll also get to feel the impact of it simultaneously. So then it becomes, do you want to be a part of this? Because what we're doing is we're starting in this neck of the woods. We're getting this going in our neck of the woods. And then what happens is where there are two people, if there's two of you in agreement, that's enough to get it started, because then you start planning the first event, and then you'll plan the second event, and then you'll plan the third event, and you'll bring that information to our PR session every week and tell us what's going on. And then anybody who's plugged in, listening in on that, thinking, wow, there's something going on with these guys. How do I get in on that? And that's the whole thing. Paul, Gabius.
I have an analogy because I think there's a lot of information around, but not the motivation is something that's lacking. So we're sorting for. But when I first came to Kelowna, we got a fireplace, and I really didn't know how to light a fire, but I had logs there, and I had newspaper, and the paper. I'd light the paper. It was a big flame, but nothing would catch with the logs, and I found that I had to light lots of newspaper in lots of different places. And with that momentum of that, all these little fires in different places, finally the logs would catch, and then you couldn't stop them. And I that's the way I kind of feel that this has to go. There's got to be lots of lighting going on and different intensities. And some will go up fast, but then peter out. But if there's enough going on, then the logs will catch, and that's what we want is once the logs catch, you can't stop them. But you can't do it with the first paper or the second paper. It just won't happen.
Agreed. Good analogy. The campfire analogy is one of my favorite analogies for teaching people how to launch their Nikken business. If you run around lighting one log at a time, good luck with that. It's going to be hard to actually get anything going. And then on top of that, what you want to do is you want to get dry logs, not wet logs. What do we mean by that? People who have some ambitious, some gumption, some who want more out of life. Those are dry logs. Wet logs you can put near a fire and they'll dry up over time, but you got to have a fire for that to happen. So how do we get the fire going? We first find the dry logs, then we pile them up, and then we put a little bit of incendiary like paper or some of the lighter weight wood, and you give it a spark. That's an event. That's like a major speaker, like a major presentation or something like that. That gets the fire going. And then you keep putting logs on the fire to keep it going. But you have to put a bunch of them to get that thing going at first. And then you can stay warm. And people who are close to the fire stay warm. And sometimes they get lit up on fire too. And that's how it starts to spread out. So same analogy. That's a really good analogy. It's funny that we're talking about this now, so many years into this and so many weeks into this process this year. But that is exactly what has not yet happened. There's little bits of this and little bits of that going, but there's not a collective vision. We don't have a consensus. We don't have an agreement that this is actually what we're going to do as a team, as a coordinated effort. Even though we're coming together on Zoom, which is at an appointed time and channel online, we've got to take our instructions and then apply it in our local environment so that we actually light that match. We get that wood going. So that's what's coming next. That's the next step. We are not going into the next 50 years after this week doing what we've been doing. We've got to change.
One more thing, Michael, on that topic is I'd really like to see Thursday night being this group practicing and doing the presentation stuff so that people get used to learning what to do with an audience versus, trying to figure out on their own. It's the way I grew up.
Absolutely. Good. I mean, in fact, what we could do is we could even use the presentation designated for that evening so that which is you guys all have the PDF, which is you guys take part in it. You do the presentation, you share the load, and that way, if we have guests, they're going to hear from not just one person, but a bunch of different people and they're going to hear the content. The content's going to get delivered, but it's going to get delivered with different styles and personalities, and that's much more appealing anyway. And we'll be there to as the backstop to hit the hammer if we have to. That's a great idea, Dave, because then it becomes a collective experience. Then you've got some skin in the game. And when you've got skin in the game, you're going to show up and you're not going to show up alone. That's just what's going to happen. Paula.
It's funny that you use that campfire analogy. I was actually burning stuff in my fire pit yesterday. And instead of newspaper and a match and trying to get it going, I was always trying to get it going with a barbecue lighter. But Steve went and took his soldering torch out and he got it started for me. So that was really pretty good. But I was on a call and I don't remember which call and I don't remember who said it, but somebody sponsored somebody in Beamsville. Beamsville
Yes.
is 20 minutes away from me, and I have inquired at the library, and I can get a room for $12 an hour. And I was planning on doing Wellness Wednesdays, but I don't want to do it by myself. So if I could get this contact from Beamsville and meet up with her, then maybe we can put something together because, as I said, Beamsville's only 20 minutes from me.
Yeah, her name is Luz. She's just like brand spanking new, although she's very familiar with the product. She's from Colombia.
Okay.
And so, yeah, follow up with me and we'll make that connection happen. But that's a great idea. See, that's what I'm talking about. We start to get the engine started. It sputters at first, but once this thing ramps up, trust me, we've all been there. When you launch this business, it takes some effort. It takes a concerted effort to get that fire going. But once it's going, it's easy to keep it going.
Mhm.
Maggie.
Thanks, Michael. I just want to say how excited I am about the call we had and then the subsequent call, because it feels like we're on to something, and we need to be on to something, because otherwise, if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to keep getting what you're getting. And we know that that hasn't been what we're capable of. We have not even touched on the possibility of what NECAN can offer. 1.6% of the people over 60, come on. We can do better. And I think that, I think I told you I'm in this year-long leadership program. And one of the things that we're doing this quarter is having a showcase. And we're going to have 3 of them over the next month. And so that showcase is an opportunity for people. I'm going to apply it to NECAN, people in NECAN who have created a success system, however it is, or whatever, they've experienced some level of success. And there's a host who introduces it and maybe shares a bit of his or her story. And then we've got 2 guests that will be presenting their, what we call the game in the world. So basically their business plan. And I love the 3 questions, Michael, that you put out to Team Canada expansion last week. I think those 3 questions are perfect framework for a showcase. And there's just so much possibility in that, because people can come as guests without any pressure, and it'll be online. So there's no cost, no travel. So, because we have to wean people from where they are to where we want them to go. They're more likely to go to a live event once they have been inspired and moved by something that they hear on a showcase. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Let me read Joe those questions just again to reminder. So, describe the moment you knew you needed to do this business and why. Now, what's beautiful about that is it captures a moment and an emotion and a context and understanding that somebody had in their journey. So it's not their whole life story. It's just, what is the moment? Then, looking back, what advice would you give to yourself in the first year of building your business? So what you're going to look back on is, what would you have done differently or more of, right? So you get really good, solid information. Again, good kind of thing to tell somebody who's looking at doing this business or getting started. And point number 3, the one that I like, where they really light up, is describe one thing. Many things you've experienced, but describe one thing that you've been able to do as a result of your success that makes the effort so worthwhile. And again, you capture this essence of, and if you got 3 or 4 or 5 people, depending on how much time you've allocated for this, wow, does that ever light the fire? And that's the call that we did in Latin America. And it was a powerful, powerful call. Lynn?
Yes, Michael, I would just like to endorse what you just said about Thursday night for us to be involved. As much as I am possibly uncomfortable, I took some initiative. I will volunteer to be one of the individuals to start something like that, because I found for myself, and I'm sure many others, once you take the initiative to do something that's hard, which I spend the time learning compensation plan, and I did it on my own initiative based what I've heard, it really brings the confidence and ability to communicate to others. So I will be the first volunteer for Thursday, because I think the rest of us who are on this call, based on what we learned from you and Dave, we have to put it in practice. It's just like a child that needs that initial step. So I'm just being the first volunteer, encourage others to do that, because
Awesome.
we need to do it.
Thanks.
This
Thank you,
quarter
Lynn.
is the, yes.
Lynn, are you also near Paula? Are you not in the
Yes.
same
We're
very,
about 45 minutes.
yes.
Okay.
I am looking, Michael, to, based on the last quarter, to do something, as you know, in West End, where we can utilize your vicinity. And I definitely am looking at a live event, and I've taken out a message to others, because of course we want the rest of us to do it together. So when we come back to Nashville, I will initiate something.
Excellent. And I want to follow up with Dave, get some more input from him on the public relations aspect of this, because let's say we all agree we're going to do an event or we're going to start an event once every 2 weeks or once a week or once a month, whatever the frequency is, we decide we're doing an event locally. Then there needs to be some PR, as he said, and there needs to be a characterization of what this event is. In other words, the the wellness preview of old, I don't think is what we're looking for. In fact, the questions that I ask on that ABC call is not a presentation, and yet it is, right? You don't take them through a very diagnosed presentation of here's your company, here's your industry, here's the compensation, here's your products, here's your training and support, it's not one of those presentations. What it is, it's a live dynamic that applies to people at a heart level and at a real world level. And so I think one of the things we want to identify with, and I'll give you an example that I shared with Maggie. One of the people I'm working with here locally, Roberto, we had lunch this week, and we were trying to package what it is that we are doing. We're not selling Nikken, although that's part of it. We're not selling wellness, although that's part of it. What is it that we're selling? We're selling what people want. Well, what is it that they want? They don't want the drill bit, they want the whole. And so we've got to get away from our mindset that we have to deliver a presentation about the drill bit. We got to talk about the whole and see who wants to know how to create more of those holes for themselves. And what I'm talking about is the why. So what is it that people want more than they want wellness? What is it that they want more than they want a business opportunity? What is it that they want more than, well, it boils down to what we came up with, or what he came up with. His call to action is called service, where S represents this serenity, peace of mind. That's what people want. They want peace of mind. They want vitality. They want to be able to be vital, functional in every aspect of their life, vitality. And then the C part represents certainty of finances. They need a certain assurance that they have control over their finances. This is what people want. And so if we were to PR that, well, how would it look? What would that event, how would you promote that event? What would it look like when you actually presented that content? Would you be doing a standard wellness preview? No. Will that come? Maybe later. Maybe at some point in the process, they'll want to do their due diligence on that. But we want to enroll them on service. And the caption is service is where the money's at. So we're tying the idea of being of service to an income option, an income opportunity. Service is where the money's at. So anybody who wants to, those words are going to ring in somebody's ears. And it's that somebody I want to be talking with. Now, keep this in mind, what I just said. Those words are going to ring in somebody's ears, and it's that somebody I want to invest time in. So I'm not looking for everybody. I'm not looking for just wellness seekers. I'm not looking for, do you understand? What I'm looking for is somebody who is motivated to make a difference, who's motivated to have financial certainty in their life, who wants to have vitality in their life, and certainty, mental serenity, which comes from peace of mind, knowing that you're doing the best you can and you're doing what you want to do. So is Nikken obviously a platform? Nikken is a platform for that, and it will be introduced as that. In other words, I'm not trying to convert them into Nikken anythings. I'm trying to show them how Nikken can be a support platform for the ideal that we're aspiring to. So this is the concept of leading with purpose, or leading with a bigger vision, leading with something that's much more interesting and much more attractive than leading with a solution. You don't lead with the solution, you lead with the problem. And so putting that first, putting what is it that people really want a solution for out there, PRing that, And then when you've got their attention, you can then start to show them the components. How can they have vitality? How can they have some financial certainty? Well, income diversification for one. And here's an example. How do we have peace of mind? It's aligning your actions with your purpose, knowing that what you're doing is making a difference, giving you an identity that aligns with who you are inside and not who you've been trying to be for the sake of making money. So we can start to weave the Nikken context into the bigger picture, but it's the bigger picture that's going to be the attraction. So that's what I think is going to draw people to a conversation and perhaps a movement. So start thinking in those terms. Start scripting your own version of that. I can see that being a movement. Any other questions or thoughts about this?
Well, that's how a church starts, right?
Yeah. Yeah. How does a church start? People are lost. They're looking for something to fill that hole that they just can't put their finger on. And, and then somebody says, "You ever heard of," and then they go on from there. Bela.
I'd like to crystallize what that big picture is. How do you describe it? I mean, you're saying don't talk about the products, but it is the products that attract people. It is the concept of wellness defined in a different way than the traditional manner. That does it.
That what you just said right there. Wellness defined in a non-traditional way.
Yeah.
Okay, so
That's how I attract people, but from what I'm getting from this is something different.
vitality. What is it that people want? They want vitality. They don't want wellness products. Wellness products is how they get vitality. So what is it that they really want? If you speak about what they really want, then you can deliver a solution that aligns with that. But if you're presenting a solution, it's a hit and miss because
that's why I'm trying. Yeah.
100% of the population will say yes to vitality. 25% will say yes to wellness.
But then why don't people want to take that quiz?
Because the quiz is still a little bit too pigeonholed. It's a little bit too structured. It's a little bit too, and it's like, what are these guys going to know about me? Or it's still one thing removed. It's a good attempt at solving the problem that we're really trying to solve that only the human touch can solve.
Right. Because as an introduction, I don't think that gets us anywhere.
answers.
Hang on, Barbara. Say again, Bela.
I said, as an introduction to Nikken, I don't think it bodes well.
Oh, again, it's context, right?
Yeah.
So is it an introduction to Nikken or is it an introduction to Nikken products?
Well, I think it becomes an introduction to Nikken because do you want to feel good? It's
Yeah.
what does Nikken stand for? So I'm having a little trouble now changing my
No,
mind.
feel good is on that level. Feel good is again, everybody's going to say yes to that. So how would you like to feel good every day?
Then why don't they take the quiz?
Because you're asking them to take a quiz. They don't think taking a quiz is going to answer that problem.
Okay.
So don't send them to take the quiz if they don't want to take the quiz. What do people want to have as a conversation before they take the quiz? Before you get the solution going, before you start showing them the moving parts, you got to have that conversation to get them to want what they say they want.
Yeah.
And that's really why I always say lead with, I've always led with the 5 pillars because that's not about a product.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's not even about an opportunity. It's about a concept where there could be a need. And once the need is identified, then you start to weave in the means, the solution. If there was a solution, and like if you told me everything about you and you said problem A, problem B, problem C. And I said, Bela, I don't know about problem C, but I think I could probably help you with problem A and problem B. Would you want to know how?
Of course.
See, now I have your approval. Now I have your permission to actually explain how I can solve problem A, problem B. But
Right.
if I said to you, Bill, I don't know what's wrong with you, but I got a solution for problem A, problem B, and you're like, you don't even know me.
No.
I'm not going to tell you what I have. So, and this is the point. The point is we're people first, and we've got to put people first always. And so, what is it that people, human beings, want? What are the fundamental, the hierarchy of needs, Maslow's law, the
Yeah,
hierarchy of needs,
absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
So, if we talk that language, then we don't actually sound like salespeople because
Right.
every salesperson in the world is pitching their thing.
Yeah.
And if you're not pitching your thing, instead you're trying to have a conversation
Yeah.
about what's important to that person, then when it's time to pitch your thing, they'll be open.
Okay.
So if we're going to have people attracted to us en masse, then we all got to get on this page and we got to PR the heck out of it. And that's how we're going to attract some attention for people to say, okay, so what do you got going on that's so good? And if they're asking that question, like that woman who texted said, I got a bunch of questions. When can we meet tomorrow?
Yeah.
Right? And that's what you want. You want people to lean in. If we can get a whole bunch of people leaning in, we're going to light this thing on fire. And if all of us on this call are part of this agenda, are part of this agenda, I mean, the idea is we are going
Part
to
of this
launch.
movement.
Yeah, we're launching Niken in a new and fresh way. And
Mhm.
we're doing this together in our own respective areas. And we're going to converge at this point in time every week to discuss how we're doing. How we're doing this. And that's going to be exciting because now it's about launching Niken, you being a team leader, an emerging team leader in your area. And believe me, everybody starts somewhere and then it expands from there. Pretty soon you're going to have team leaders in other parts, but you're going to see them as team leaders, not as my team members. So the orientation is we're creating team leaders. We have to multiply, multiply, multiply. We don't want to just bring them in and corral them and nurse them and keep them cozy. We want to continue to multiply and multiply and multiply and multiply.
Mhm. Thank
So,
you.
thank you. So it's about moving out of our comfort zone, really. Because as long as we're comfortable, we're not growing. And if we're not growing, we're not going to lead anybody anywhere. Nobody's going to follow you. But if you're going somewhere because you got somewhere to go, people tend to get out of your way or follow. And if you don't believe me, do what my mentor Bob Proctor used to say. Go to a mall, very busy mall, and start walking with purpose in one direction and just watch how the crowd just seems to make way for you. All right. So that's pretty much it. We have obviously a very important weekend coming up. I wish everybody who's traveling safe travels. Those of you who will be watching from the sidelines, pay attention because we're coming out of this weekend not to do what we've done, but to do what we've never done, what we've not yet done. And that means to open this thing up to a level that it's never been opened up to. Even in our heydays, we didn't achieve this. So it's time to do that. If Niken is worth doing, if it's worth your time, if it's worth your heart, if it's worth your energy, it's worth shouting it from the rooftops. And that's what we need to start to do. We need to make a case for this in a big way. Maggie? You're on mute. You're still on mute.
I
There
have
you
to.
go.
My phone is, yeah, it's not cooperating. If I could just tell it what to do, maybe it would work. Anyway, Michael, I am even more excited than I was when I talked to you today. And I'm so looking forward to the Nashville event, and 5 of that Team Expansion Canada group are going to be there. We're going to meet with you and Luis. We are going to really start some fires here. Wonderful, warming fires that everybody wants to be around.
So that's it, guys. Dee, I expect to be seeing you making things happen in Chicago. I want to come back. Give me a reason to come. You know what I'm talking about, Connie? The two of you guys got to hook up and make that happen again. You're the best. So, you know, Solange in Quebec, hello. En Québec, en français, je veux venir.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, je serai avec vous pour parler en français. Maggie, you speak in French with me.
Oh, good. Very, very good. Okay, that's it for now. I'm charged. I hope you are.
We are.
Okay.
Thanks, Mike.
Have a great week. Have a great weekend. See you soon.
Enjoy
Merci,
your
Monsieur
trip,
Demucho.
guys.
Thanks.
Merci,
Have a
Monsieur
wonderful
Demucho.
trip, everybody. Wish I could be with you.
Monsieur Demucho, je me garde un petit moment pour parler avec vous.
Oui.
Au téléphone. Au téléphone.
Mike, we'll have to hook up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dave. Let's
Okay.
do that. Okay,
Yeah.
let me stop the recording. Thanks, everybody.
Have a great
Attends,
trip,
Solange.
everybody. Bye.